Hey y'all, it's Christy from Teadoddles here. Today I'm going to show y'all how to make a rope bowl using this cotton rope, which I call clothesline. But first, let's say welcome new subscribers, welcome back subscribers. I'm happy to have you here with me and my maker shenanigans. I do like to do the sewing things, the yarning things, and the DIY things. If you like to do those things, you might like it here. All right, so someone asked me a question about, they had the clothesline, if you get it at Walmart, is nylon, which you should be able to still do this with nylon rope. I would just test needles and thread that works with it best. I am using cotton rope, which I have dyed. I'll try to get it in the camera here. Yeah, this is it right here. This is about, I think this is 50 yards right here. Because I have two, I realized I bought some that's 100 yards and some that's 50 yards. It just depends. I usually get mine at Ollie's. But I have used macrame cord to do this before, which was cotton macrame cord. So I imagine you can do it with a lot of different things. Now, right in my end. So I'm going to zoom in on what I'm sewing in just a moment. But first I want to talk about what I'm going to do to set this up. I have my top thread is orange. My bottom thread is black, because this is a kind of grayed out basket and it's kind of, I'm going for a Halloween theme. You can use whatever color or thread you want for this. Just be aware of what's going to show on the inside and what's going to show on the outside. We're going to be sewing it the bottom, so we're going to be sewing on the inside. You're going to be looking at the inside when you're sewing, and so the outside is going to be where the bobbin thread goes. All right, now I also have and I'm just using cotton thread. This is, I believe, which one is this? Gutermann, yeah, that I have on top, and the bottom is one of my cones that I got. It might be cotton poly blend, but whatever thread you usually use should work fine. Now for my needle, I am going to change out my needle right quick, because I want to use, and I didn't think about that till I'd already threaded it. I want to use a 116 needle, which is heavy duty, or jeans, denim, any kind of needle like that would work best for this. And this just is a heavier needle to get through that thickness that we're going to sew through. So let me get this changed. All right, now that my needle's changed, I pulled out a good little bit just because I want to have some, because I need to grab, well, you don't need quite that much. I got too much out there, but just, you know, so you can grab onto it a little bit and keep it out of the way of when you start stitching. I'm going to be using a zigzag stitch for this. And on my machine, that is a number 5 stitch. And I'm changing, okay, so there's 2 stitches here. I don't know if y'all can see that in the camera or not, but there's the width and then there's the length of the stitch, okay? So the width is how wide the zigzag is. The length for a zigzag stitch is how far apart the zigzags are, okay? So I want to keep my length fairly close, but not 1.4. That's way too small. I'm going to set on about like a 2.5 for my length. And then for my width, I'm going to go all the way up to the 7, which is as far as mine goes, okay? That's what I find works best for me. You may have to make some adjustments to your machine and just see how it goes. So to start off with, I have one end. If you've got any frayed bits or anything, you want to cut that off so it looks fairly smooth. Now I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to, so you can see better what I'm doing. Okay. Now that I'm zoomed in, I don't start mine with like a little tightly coil thing. I find that very hard to get zigzag stitches started on. I usually just start mine by folding over, I don't know, what is this, maybe an inch or something like that. Usually I just fold it where it naturally bends at the end. So I got these 2 pieces together just like this. And what I'm going to do, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get let's tilt this up some more. There we go. I'm gonna put the folded end under, because that just is easier to keep together, or to keep your end. I can pinch it, so just be mindful of your fingers when you're doing this. I'm going to put it right there up under my presser foot, just that very end, and I'll hold this together, and then I'm going to start sewing. All right, so when you first start this, it's probably not going to move, and that's fine. So I'm going to make sure my needle is up. I'm going to pick up my presser foot. I'm going to move it just a little bit, so it's more up under there. And I'm going to sew some more. And then eventually it'll pull it, and it'll go back and forth. And when you get to the end, pick up your presser foot, leave your needle down, turn it. I'm turning it sideways, as you can see. I'm going to go back and forth this way, long ways, and I'm going to hit the reverse. And I'm going to do that a couple of times. Then I'm going to pick up my presser foot again, and I'm going to aim to go back down the center, just like that. And I'm going to hit reverse. Once I get that middle done, I have it good. Alright, so now I can turn around. You can clip off the end at this point if you want to, or not. So I'm just going to come back this way. When I get here, try to make sure your needle's to the right side. Then I can turn it just a little bit. We're going to zigzag. And then I'll turn it, trying to make sure I'm catching those ends. I do more zigzag stitches in one place at the very beginning to hold it together better. Once you get going, you're just going to be going around one time. So we turn it. We go across. If you find that your machine, if you're going too fast, what you got to do is slow down your machine, right? Mine has 3 different speeds, but I can control it pretty good with my foot. But if you find that you're pushing it too fast, just slow your machine down. I'll trim this off right here. All right, so I'm just coming. I'm trying to keep the center of my presser foot on the gap between the rope pieces. That way it's catching both sides of the rope. And if you realize your zigzag stitches aren't catching both sides, you may need to adjust your width, which my width is all the way up. So this is as far as it goes. But if you didn't set it to that farthest width, you may be having an issue. So we're just going to keep turning. I'm just pushing this as I turn. And once you get started, it kind of does it for you. You just have to pick up the presser foot when you get around the corner a little bit to make sure you're staying in that gap. Once it gets bigger, you don't have to do that. So now I'm into single stitches. I'm just going around at a fairly steady pace, keeping that midline of my presser foot in that gap. You can see I've kind of got my finger over here tucking in more rope as I turn it. Now the first time you do this, you're probably going to go a lot slower than me, and that's fine. Once you get used to it and maybe make a couple of them, you'll go a little bit faster. So we're going to continue. I'm just going to continue doing this so I get the base the size that I want, okay? And it depends on what size basket you want. I'm going to be making a medium-sized basket, so I want a 5-inch base. So I got a little bit more to go. All right, my base is at 5 inches, mostly around, and now it's time to start tilting my basket, okay? So something I forgot to mention at the beginning is important to be joining your rope on this side, because when you get ready to tilt it, If you're doing the other side, it's going to tilt to the inside of your machine, and that can be harder to see what you're doing. So I'm just going to hold this up just like that and continue my stitches so I can start making a little lip around the edge. And you can kind of see how it's starting to curve up. And just be mindful of anything you're touching with it over here. So and as you can see, we're getting a little lip, and we'll have basket side soon. I'm going to continue on. I'm planning on using most all of this rope I have over here. So I'll continue on, and then we'll be back, and I'll show you how I finish off the end. Okay, before we finish off the end, I forgot. I need to show y'all how to add fabric to this. You see how my outside's looking? Because I put black thread on the bottom. So I really like how that's turning out. So I've got some little Halloween scraps. These are just 2-inch squares. I find 2-inch squares work good. You can, and I have a lot of them where I cut them from bags and things. Or 3-inch squares if you're making a bigger one. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever scraps you want to in it. So what I'm going to do, if you want the entire scrap to show, you just put it here. But I always put a little piece in between like that. I kind of wrap it a little bit until I catch it. Just sandwich it up and go over it. Now I've caught that piece of fabric in there. When I come back around, I can just continue to stitch over it, or I can weave it in between the layers if I want. Just coming back around. So I just need to make sure my rope is over the top. And I just continue across just like that. And what I usually do to stagger these a bit is I'll go around so many times before I add the next one, and I'll add it in a different spot. So I'll come right here and I'm going to add another one. I'm going to do this orange polka dot one. You can do it however you like if you want them all even. I kind of like the scattered effect. I ran out of top thread, y'all. Did not realize. Luckily, I have another orange. Okay, now that it's rethreaded, I'm just gonna go back and forth here. I'll trim off that excess thread. In a minute, I'll just have a little patch of extra thread, which is fine with me. So if you wanted this to go in and out of it, you would just put the rope up under the fabric instead of over it. I want these all to be on top, so I'm doing it all on top. Okay, I've come to a point where I can't make this any bigger because of the thing that's holding my camera. So I'm going to show you how I finish off this end. Now, you don't have to do what I'm going to do, which I'm going to wrap some yarn around the end. You can just fold it like I show you and zigzag over it, okay? I like to put the yarn around the end just to make it look a little bit neater on the end for the little handle thing. So I'm going to cut back. You need the same overlap as you started with. So you're going to cut back far enough so you can have that when you get to that point. And then what I do, because it folds over like this again, like that. So I'm going to wrap here. So I put my yarn along here like this, so I can catch the tail. This is not focused. There we go, like that. And then I just start wrapping it. Ooh, hit the thing. And that's all I do, which is really hard to do under this camera, but I just wrap it like that. Let me wrap it, I'll show you so I can see it better. Okay, so I've wrapped it as much as I can because I didn't quite get it long enough. So something like this. And what I usually do is take a big darning needle and I tuck it back up under there, the tail of the thread that's not under the wrap. So I got this on here, and then I'll just go right up under there like that. Maybe go into the wraps, the rope underneath it some, and I just pull it back there like that. That lets my end be caught up in it, both ends caught up under there. There we go. And I'll just trim these off. Just like that. And you can do that. You can just wrap it around. You don't have to wrap it around tightly either. You can just wrap it around as you're sewing these rope bowls, which I've done before with leftover yarn. And it just goes in between. And I'll show you one I did like that at the end. I'm going to fold it over like this. Now you can, I normally go around the whole thing with this, but I didn't quite leave myself enough yarn to do that. So I'm going to fold it just like this, like I did before. But let's get closer to that point. All right, right here. I'm going to tuck that in between, what do I want to say? Between the basket and the piece that's coming around, just like that. I'm going to go over, going to catch. I don't want to sew over the whole end of this. I'm going to go back and forth. Until I feel it secure. And that's really all you do. Now, you take it out. Okay, I'm back over here and I have my finished basket. Here we go. Take a look around. That's what the bottom looks like. You can see how the stitches, since I use contrasting thread, you're going to see some of the top thread on the back because we're sewing through something so thick. Unless you want to adjust tension and stop that. I like the way that looks. So I've got a little bit of the orange thread showing with the black, but on the inside it's only the orange thread you see. So it looks different on the inside. And then I got my little patches of fabric in there. And then I did my little loop-de-loop at the top. Yeah, that one's a little bit small. Usually I make them a little bit bigger, but it still works. There's just a way to finish it off. Like I said, you don't have to wrap the yarn around the end if you don't want to. It's pretty easy to do. It may take you a couple times. I know my baskets look better than when I first started. Yeah, and this is some that I dyed. And like I said, I had intended on this being bigger sides, but because of the armature that holds the camera, I couldn't go up higher because it's right beside my machine. But yeah, you can really go fairly larger with these. If you watched my last video, I shot a bigger basket and I showed you the one with the yarn. And all I did with the yarn one is wrap it as I was sewing. And that's all I did. So you can use yarn and fabric scraps in this. And this is part of October's sewing challenge for my scrappy burr along. I feel like this is still a scrappy project. Even this cotton rope stuff is fairly cheap, or you can try using some other materials you have, like the nylon rope or anything. What I would suggest when you're sewing with that, because nylon tends to be slippery, let's just say slippery, more slippery. There we go. You may have to hold on to it a little bit more, and you may have to work with your thread to see what works best with the nylon. The cotton thread should work okay with it, but it may not. It's gonna work a little differently. So, but I will try it out and see how it goes. I really like how this turned out. This will be for sale in my shop eventually. Hopefully by a Monday, I will have Halloween and fall baskets and bags in my shop. So I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section down below. And until next time, y'all remember to have a life lived creatively, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.